Hi, I'm Cindy Cloward with Riley Blake Designs, and I'm so excited to introduce our RBD Block Challenge for 2022. We have 16 different blocks designed by many of our RBD artists, including one by myself. And we're going to release these blocks 3 times a month. It's a mystery quilt, so you're going to have to tune in when we release the blocks and download the pattern on our RBD website. This is what the pattern looks like. And our first block was designed by our friend and quilter, Lori Holt, and it's called Daisy Chain. This is what the pattern looks like, and this is what the quilt block looks like. Again, it's a challenge. So these quilt blocks are gonna maybe test your quilting skills a little bit, but we can make them, all of them together, because step by step, they're easy to do. So let's get started on the first quilt block, Daisy Chain. So you've already downloaded the pattern from our website, and it gives you fabric requirements for each of the blocks. You just need to make the block once. But like I mentioned, it's a mystery quilt, so you don't get to see the whole quilt at once, but we will have fabric requirements for the entire quilt listed, and RBD is choosing to make our quilt block out of solids, and it's monochromatic, so it's all these blues together. I've never made a monochromatic quilt, so I'm really excited to make this quilt out of blues because I love blues, and it's going to look really beautiful with pops of white, all the blues and pops of white. So we have listed on our website the individual block, but if you're going to make the entire quilt, we have fabric requirements to make the entire quilt out of our Confetti Cotton fabric. But what's also going to be fun is each individual designer that has created a quilt block is going to make the block out of their fabric. So you're going to see different options of fabric choice out of the same pattern. So I've downloaded the pattern for this block, and I've cut out all the fabrics as required, as listed by materials and cutting requirements. And to help me stay organized, I have put stickers on them related to the pattern, and these are the handy stickers as designed by Lori Holt, and I just relate them to piece A, piece B, piece C, and E, so it's easy to grab them as you're reading the pattern, because and once you get into the pattern, you'll understand what I mean. So let's get started. You are going to take your pieces, your A and D piece as referred to in the pattern, and you're going to put them right sides together. Now we're using solid fabrics, which means they are dyed. So there's not necessarily a right and a wrong side, but if you're using a pattern or a printed collection, you're going to put right sides together. And you're going to take it to the machine, make sure you have an accurate 1/4 inch seam allowance. I use this Lori Holt seam guide that's really handy, and I'm using my stitch length 2.5. And it really is super important with all of these patterns that you have an accurate 1/4 inch seam allowance. And if your fabrics are shifting a little bit, you can put a pin in this long piece. I'm going to take this over here now. We'll put these stickers away. Again, I love lots of tips on how to simplify piecing quilts. And putting these stickers on is one of my favorite ones. So you look at it, yep, looks like an accurate 1/4 inch seam allowance. I'm going to take it over to my pressing station. And a lot of times I follow up with a clapper. Just take out that steam and moisture. There. All right, let's take our strip piece section, and I'm going to put on my glasses so I can look over the pattern as I'm going along, and it says to cut 8 1 3/4 segments. So you're going to line that up. Make sure this line that you're starting with is nice and straight. And we're going to do 8. Okay, got all our 4 patches. You're going to have a little bit extra. Now it's time to assemble them together. And you're going to do right sides together, opposite, nesting your seams. So just like that. And sometimes I just get, if I'm right by my pressing station, I give them a quick press, and that allows me to not pin. If you're kind of new to quilting or feel like your blocks are going to shift, then throw a pin in them. It's really easy to do. I kind of put a pin like that. You can even do a pin on your ends. And you're just going to chain piece all your blocks together. Again, this quilt block is so chain piece friendly, which just means you're saving time assembling the quilt block. Okay, we've got them all chained together. Just going to give them a quick press before I open them up. Give each one a nice press. I let my quilter's clapper kind of rest on it. Okay, here's our 4 patches all done together all at once. Just going to clip my threads in between, put them over here. Now the next thing in the pattern it tells you to do is get your rectangle blocks. It's block E and block B. So see how helpful it is to have these stickers? Just kind of put them wherever. They show up all over my sewing room. You can put them in the trash can right now. Now you're going to take your little square blocks and you need to mark them with a mechanical pencil. You can just do one at a time. And this is going to be your stitch line. You're going to do it kind of a stitch and flip method. I'm just going to show you 2. Again, you can mark them all at once and just chain piece all of them at one time. It makes it so quick and easy to do. I'll do a couple more because I know I'm going to be using these later. So I'm going to just make 2 at a time because you do mirror images of both of these. So on one side, you're going to need to make 4 of these blocks that goes this direction, and then you're going to need to make 4 of these blocks going the opposite direction. So I'm going to put just a pin in here to hold it in place. And again, this is going to be your stitch line. Again, I just give them a press. And that's just the direction I want both blocks to go. And then I'm going to give them a quick trim. I line my 1/4 inch right up there and trim on the other. So the next thing you need to do is grab more of your B blocks and your F blocks. And again, you're gonna just chain piece, do them all at once. I'm gonna just show you one unit. And I've already previously marked these B blocks. And you're gonna sew one of these on at a time. So you're gonna take this, sew along your line, bring it back, and then you're gonna sew your other block on. Kind of like making a little bit of a flying geese method, if you're familiar with that. Okay, so you bring it here and you're gonna check it, make sure it's going the right way. Then you can trim it using a ruler, cutting everything down to a 1/4 inch. So just like that, I'm gonna take it, finger press it, take it over to my pressing station. You can grab your other B unit and put it right on there too. Again, sometimes I iron instead of pin. Makes a heat adhesive. You can take it back to your machine and sew your other side. Again, I'm just showing you one unit because I would chain piece this 4 different times. So just like that. Check it before you cut it. Just trimming off the side. Again, finger press it back. And now that you've created this unit, you put together your previous side pieces like this. It's going to make that nice little V shape. So now that that is pressed opposite from this other side, you can just nest those seams together. So I'm going to put that together. And pressing your pieces and lining them up will give you better results. So that's how that's going to look. Again, that's going to go over here. So I lined that up. Okay, so take it to the machine. Again, I'd make these all at once. I'm just showing you an example of one unit at a time. I'm going to press to the outside for now. We'll take a look. Okay, so now we've got this piece. We'll eventually line this up. Now check these 2 outside pieces. They should all be 3 inches squared. And just trim them up so they all make sure they're 3 inch squared. Okay, so those pieces are done. I'm going to put that aside for now. And now we're going to do our center section of the block. So we need to take our G block and we need to take our H block. This is how it's lined up. And then we'll use our remaining C blocks. So I always sew this section together. Again, strip piecing is the way to get things done quickly and efficiently. I'm doing it opposite towards the camera, so it's a little more tricky. I'm going to pin the top, and I do pin these so I know where I'm starting. They're so little, a lot of times I just don't pin these small little units together. So let me take it to the machine and sew these 3 sections together. Okay, we've got these 3 sections like this. Let's add the other sides on. I just do the same method over and over. It keeps my mind organized when I'm piecing if you are consistent in your method. Find what works best for you, but this works really well for me. I don't cut my threads in between because I'm chain piecing it all together, and this whole section comes together beautifully. Okay, let's take it over here to the ironing board. And then I'm going to decide which way I'm going to press. So I'm going to press this in and these sides out. That way my seams will nest together. On this section, I'm going to flip over, press in. Sometimes I just finger press it because it's a little fussy doing it this way. But look how I'm going to nest those seams so beautifully together. So all my points come together perfectly. They just kind of click into place. You can just fill it with your finger, just like that. Okay, let's press it open. Looks great. Just gonna press it like that. Our center unit is finished of our quilt block. I'm going to finish all our other squares, putting them together in other units. We'll meet back here to finish our quilt block. Okay, it's really important to make sure your blocks are the accurate size. And so this is the time to square them up or just make sure that they're all correct. Now this first one, let's find my 5.5-inch square. And I like to put it on this rotating mat. This is designed by Daley to cut all the sides at once. So I kind of line everything up like that. See if there's anything that needs to be trimmed. It's pretty good on that side. Looks like we just have a hair on this side that needs to be trimmed. So that's good to go. These should all, I think I already previously measured them. These should be 3 inches squared, and these are 3 by 5.5. So you can line them up just like this. Just got it, and it looks pretty good. Now what you want to do with this block is make sure you never cut into your 1/4 inch seam allowance. You have that nice point. And I'm just going to hurry and check all 3 of these blocks. Make sure they're just right. So let's finish assembling our quilt block, our daisy chain. Again, I'm consistent on how I put my blocks together. Flip them over like that. And so in one long chain piece, I just mark where I start my sewing so I don't get myself confused. Just line it up with a pin. Let's take it to the machine and sew. All right. Check color points, how they're coming together, looking good. Let's flip that over here, here, and here. Marking where I start with the pin. Marking where I start my stitches. Okay, let's bring it back here, take a look. It's looking good. Again, you want to make sure you've got that chain going the right direction. Now our last 2 seams, and we want to nest those seams together. So I'm going to flip my seams the opposite direction. Sometimes when you have a detailed quilt block, you want to open up your seams. But if you can nest them, that's much better to have seams flipped one direction or another, because opening up your seams actually makes your quilt block a little weaker when it's long arm quilted, because when it's stitched on one side, there's less pressure on that seam. So you want to nest them as much as possible, but sometimes you get a lot of bulk and you just need to open up your seams and line them up that way. Okay, that is going inside. Okay, let's sew our 2 final seams. All right, we just finished our last seam. Let's give it a good press. Give it a little blast before I open it up. And your quilt block is finished. The last thing you need to do is give it a quick square up. Make sure you don't need to trim any place on it. Let's take a look. It all lines up. You want to see that your points are inside this blue line. So you've got plenty of space to stitch around, and it's 10.5-inch square. And the daisy chain quilt block is finished. This is designed by Holt. It'll be fun to see how Lori incorporates her fabric into our block. We hope you will follow along and sew along with Riley Blake Designs. So come join our RBD block challenge.